Hello everyone, good afternoon. This is Professor Hill's a short video for our class Introduction to Ethics, Philosophy 2306 here at St. Philip's College for the summer one term. And today is Tuesday, the 22nd of June 2021. And I spent yesterday, Monday, grading papers. So they were due Sunday night. And I thought I would get through them all, but I've been trying to make comments, and but as it turns out, back on track today, Tuesday, as we look ahead for Thursday night, midnight, and our next essay is being due. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Nash family in just a minute, the next case study. I'm going to spend a little time talking about chapter 5, about consequentialism, which is what we're doing now. But I do want to also make a couple of quick comments about the essays I've been going through and grading. And here's the thing, which is one's about learning and one's about tricks and traps for writing essays. So advice, which would probably be good, not just for this class, but for other classes as well. But in general, I would tell you this, with the material from the chapter, you want to try to slow down, because reading this philosophy is not like reading a newspaper, for example, or a lot of times even reading just stuff from other classes, because some of the concepts are pretty difficult to understand. And the problem we had with chapter 2 and a little bit with chapter 4 is that if you read it quickly and you just kind of give it a cursory run through, you might think, oh, I know what that means. And it turns out you really got to spend a little time with it. Because I mentioned this earlier with like emotivism. People just saw the word emotivism and thought, oh, that must mean emotions. You're acting and making decisions based on your emotions. And as I said before, that is not what that means. But that's an example of what could happen if you just skip through too fast. So let me encourage you, as your philosophy instructor, just please slow down and read the chapter. And if you have questions, let me know. Or check other sources. You know, the Stanford University Philosophy Encyclopedia, which is online. It's like a big wiki for philosophy. Stanford University Philosophy Encyclopedia. It's a great resource. I'll put a link to it in the Canvas page. Okay, that was good general advice. Here's the trick or trap thing, which is when you're writing an essay for my class or any other class, and your professor says, look, there's several options in terms of concepts or definitions you can pull out and bring into a chapter. Like we did with, chapter 2 was really just about 4 things: objectivism, cultural relativism, subjective relativism, and emotivism. Well, here's my thing. Some folks just did kind of a shotgun and talked a little bit about all of them. But what might have worked better was just to pull out one that you really understood and had a firm grasp on and bring that one into the essay. Because that way you're talking about the one you really know and can apply it and use it, which is a lot better than trying to just pull in one, you skimmed over, you think you got it, you drop it in, and then it turns out you're not using it correctly. The simple answer to that is just to go a little slower, that's all. And only pull over and apply the ones you know that you can work with, use appropriately, apply appropriately, and get something out of it. So that's, the nickel advice for the afternoon. All right. Consequentialism. I put into the Canvas module a link about both consequentialism and one form of it, utilitarianism, the little Jeremy Bentham video that's in there. And then also The one really which gets highlighted in the next chapter, which is about deontology or non-consequentialism. But I put them both in already because as you already from chapter 4 was laying this out. Consequentialism, non-consequentialism, Utilitarianism as an example of consequentialism. And over here, talking about deontology as a kind of another one of the key ways of talking about non-consequentialism. Those are kind of interchangeable. But it's, again, talking about here Kant as an example of deontology and objectivist moral thinking in terms of here are these rules or principles that you need to learn and apply. The main thing about all of this is don't forget this piece. We're talking about both the reasons someone makes a decision and then the rationale or philosophy behind it. So, it was like with John the paramedic. We know the choice he made, but in terms of his reasoning, we would have to ask John whether his approach was objectionist or somehow cultural relativistic, because we're not have John's mind to talk to and ask him questions about. Now, I did a little bit of that, and I'll come back to that at some other point. But my point is here is that when I asked you to make a decision about John, was it right or wrong? I want you to give me your thinking. Straight out, don't fudge, just say, yes, he was right. And here's why, my thinking. And then go, because you can talk about, is your thinking a reflection of cultural relativism or some objective moral theory? Are you just applying a rule like one of the 10 Commandments or something? You have access to that. So we don't want to confuse being the decision maker with like saying, well, John, the paramedic, made a decision and he said he was okay with it, so therefore he must be like a subjective relativist. Well, we don't know that. So we don't want to jump to conclusions about that. So again, now, especially that we're in 4 and 5 and 6 and taking this as a block, and we're looking at this big divide between consequentialism and non-consequentialism, we want to make sure that we go slow as they get into the kind of different types of each in these big categories and explore how, and this is the important part, explore how they're trying to find a way for us to determine what's right and wrong, good and bad. What's the foundation of that? If I say something's right, how do I know that? What can I point to? Is it a commandment? Is it my shared values, knowing that everybody in my society has a common normative ethical kind of consensus about that? So that's how I know what's right. I've been taught this by my family, my teachers, my coaches, my religious leader. They're all reinforcing the same value in me. And what do we do when they come into conflict? So I get that it's complicated, and I've been trying to reflect that both in my comments on papers and in the grading and in the fact that, we're just now getting into the heart and the meat of all this stuff. One good way to compare and contrast these two things is what we're going to do tomorrow, Wednesday the 23rd, which is something I don't normally like to do, which is use a fictional story, something that's completely made up. I like, obviously, true life case studies. I think they're more relevant to students. I think that it's nice to always know what the outcome is, what really happened at the end. That helps give us a sense of resolution and completion. The trolley problem, which we'll deal with tomorrow, is an intuition pump or a fictional exercise developed by a philosopher, Philippa Foot, in the 1960s. But it does help us get at these definitions and the concepts. So there is a role for this, and we'll do that tomorrow. But tomorrow's Wednesday. The next day, Thursday, is when your next essay is due. And so one last final concluding note about the essays. Look, you've now had a chance to see the essays for the first couple of case studies. And what you'll notice is, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, there's some really, really good ones in there. When you look at them, when you read them, you can see that people spent a lot of time with it. They brought in the material from the chapter. They explored all the issues. They thought about it. They made a tough call. They've supported it. They've got citations, even if just to the textbook, which is fine. My point is, there are good exemplars that you can see now. Use those as an example for your next essay due Thursday night. Okay? You don't want to just, again, give it a quick, cursory, I'm going to jam, it's 11:52. I got a paper due in 8 minutes, so I'm going to shout a couple sentences into a phone. Don't do that. Avoid it. You have plenty of time. So utilize the time. Read the chapter. Think about the case study. It's really complicated, and I'll talk more about that tomorrow as well. Because there's a lot going on in this case. Medical ethics, so applied ethics, but also the kind of the specter haunting it is eugenics. That's what's in the background behind this. So look, you might also be familiar with, because the story of the Nash family, which is a true story, Jack and Lisa got turned into a movie, My Sister's Keeper. It was first the book in 2004, and then the movie came out 5 years later, 2009. The movie had like Cameron Diaz and Alec Baldwin and Joan Cusack, a bunch of other people. It was a popular movie. And they changed it a little bit. The book and the movie made changes to the story. It's based on Jack and Lisa Nash's story, but they changed it to make it a little bit more dramatic and a little bit even kind of more tense. But it is inspired by a true story. It is kind of based upon the life story of Jack and Lisa and their two children, Molly and Adam, and later a third child. So anyway, that's enough for today. More tomorrow with talk about the case study and eugenics, but also about the trolley problem. So tomorrow will be a long day. Today, keep reading, keep writing, get ready for Thursday night. All right. Take care of yourselves, all right? It's summertime. We're in week 3 of 5. Believe me, we'll get there. Hang in there.